I never imagined my life would change so drastically. Growing up, my parents had been my rock, my constant support. We weren't wealthy, but we were happy. When I lost them in a tragic car accident just 2 years after my marriage to Liam, my world fell apart. Their absence left a void that I thought could never be filled. At first, Liam was supportive, holding me as I cried myself to sleep night after night. But things began to shift subtly, like a shadow creeping in at the edges of my life. Liam came from a well-off family. His parents, Harold and Marjorie, were influential, wealthy, and, most of all, cold. They had never approved of me. Marjorie once told me at a family gathering, "You're lucky my son sees something in you. Don't forget where you come from." I brushed it off then, thinking it was just her way of asserting dominance. But after my parents' death, her words seemed to echo in every interaction we had. Initially, I moved in with Liam's family temporarily while we searched for a new place. What started as temporary, though, turned into something far more sinister. Marjorie's disdain turned into outright hostility. She assigned me chores around the house as if I were the live-in maid. "If you're staying under this roof, you'll need to pull your weight," she'd say with a saccharine smile that barely masked her contempt. At first, I complied without complaint. After all, I was grieving and didn't want to cause trouble. But soon, it became clear that this wasn't just about helping out. Harold and Marjorie treated me as if I were beneath them. They'd host lavish dinners, inviting their high society friends, while I was relegated to serving drinks and cleaning up afterward. Once, during one of these events, Marjorie's voice cut through the room like a whip. "Sarah, dear, you missed a spot," she sneered, pointing to a speck of dust on the mantel. The guests laughed, and my cheeks burned with humiliation. Liam, standing nearby, said nothing. I tried to talk to Liam about it that night. "Your parents treat me like I'm their servant," I said, my voice trembling. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "They're just old-fashioned. Sarah, don't take it personally. It's their house, after all." "Old-fashioned?" I repeated incredulously. "Liam, they're demeaning me. Can't you see that?" "Just let it go," he said, turning away. That was the beginning of the wedge that started to grow between us. One evening, Marjorie's friend, Evelyn, came over for tea. I was in the kitchen, preparing a tray, when I overheard their conversation. "Honestly, Marjorie," Evelyn said, "why does she even stay here? You'd think she'd have some pride." Marjorie's laugh was icy. "She has nowhere else to go. Poor thing, she's just lucky we're so charitable." The words cut through me like shards of glass. I wanted to march into the room and confront them, but I knew it would only make things worse. Instead, I stayed in the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter until my knuckles turned white. As the months passed, their treatment grew worse. Harold would make snide comments about how people like me didn't understand the value of hard work, despite the fact that I had been juggling 2 jobs to help Liam through college before we got married. Marjorie, meanwhile, seemed to delight in finding new ways to humiliate me. Once, during a family dinner, she asked, "Sarah, do you even know which fork to use?" The table erupted in laughter, and I felt like sinking into the floor. But the breaking point came one fateful evening. Harold announced that his boss, Mr. Grant, would be coming over for dinner. "This is an important night," he said, looking pointedly at me. "Try not to embarrass us, Sarah." That night, as I set the table with trembling hands, I resolved to endure whatever insults came my way. For Liam's sake, I told myself, but deep down, a part of me wondered how much longer I could take it. Little did I know, that evening would change everything. As the months wore on, my situation with Thomas's family continued to worsen. Despite my best efforts to blend into their world and earn their respect, nothing I did seemed good enough. Each day blurred into the next, with tasks piling up and the disdain from my in-laws becoming more overt. I found myself waking up before sunrise to prepare breakfast for the entire family. By the time I sat down to eat, Thomas's mother, Elaine, would click her tongue disapprovingly. "This toast is overdone," she'd complain. Or, "Didn't I tell you I prefer my eggs sunny side up?" It didn't matter how much effort I put in, she always found a flaw. Thomas's father, Richard, wasn't much better. He often treated me like invisible help. If Elaine had guests over, Richard would bark at me to refill glasses or serve hors d'oeuvres, all while ignoring my existence otherwise. I felt like a stranger in the home I had once thought of as my refuge. Thomas, once my biggest supporter, now seemed indifferent to my struggles. When I tried to talk to him, he would brush me off. "They're just set in their ways," he'd say. "You've got to learn to pick your battles, Mia." But how could I pick my battles when I felt like I was fighting a war on all fronts? My breaking point came one evening when Elaine invited some of her friends over for a dinner party. She spent the entire day barking orders at me, making sure the house was spotless and the menu impeccable. I was exhausted by the time the guests arrived, but I put on a polite smile and carried out the tasks she assigned me. Toward the end of the evening, one of Elaine's friends asked about my family. I hesitated for a moment, then explained that I had lost my parents at a young age and had grown up in foster care. The room fell silent, and I immediately regretted sharing. Elaine broke the awkward tension with a forced laugh. "Well, that explains why you're so good at handling things on your own," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. Her friends chuckled politely, but I could see the judgment in their eyes. For the rest of the evening, I felt like I was on display, a curiosity for these well-heeled women to dissect. Later that night, I confronted Thomas in our room. "Your mother humiliated me tonight," I said, my voice trembling. Thomas barely looked up from his phone. "You're overreacting, Mia. She didn't mean anything by it." "How can you say that? You heard her." He sighed heavily, as if I were the one inconveniencing him. "You need to stop making everything about you. My parents have done so much for us." I stared at him in disbelief. "So that gives them the right to treat me like I'm beneath them?" Thomas didn't answer, and I realized that the man I had married, the man who had once promised to stand by me no matter what, was no longer the same. The next day, while running errands for Elaine, I stopped at a small cafe to grab a coffee. As I waited in line, I overheard a conversation at the table behind me. A man in a sharp suit was speaking animatedly about a new charity project he was spearheading. His voice was warm and inviting, and for a moment, I felt a pang of longing. When I turned to glance at him, our eyes met. He smiled, and I quickly looked away, embarrassed. Little did I know, that chance encounter would change the trajectory of my life. That evening, Elaine announced with great fanfare that Richard's boss, Mr. Harrington, would be joining us for dinner the following week. She was in a flurry of excitement, directing preparations like a military general. "This is a big opportunity for your father-in-law," she said. "Don't screw it up, Mia." I wanted to roll my eyes, but I bit my tongue. I knew this dinner would be another test, and I braced myself for whatever was to come. The days leading up to the dinner were grueling. I spent hours cleaning every corner of the house, polishing silverware, and perfecting recipes under Elaine's watchful eye. By the time the evening arrived, I was too tired to even feel nervous. As the guests began to arrive, I tried to stay in the background, serving drinks and making myself as inconspicuous as possible. But when Mr. Harrington walked through the door, my heart stopped. It was the same man I had seen at the cafe. He paused when he saw me, his brow furrowing slightly. "Mia?" Everyone turned to look at me. I froze, unsure of how to respond. "You two know each other?" Richard asked, his tone laced with suspicion. Mr. Harrington's face broke into a smile. "Oh, we go way back, don't we, Mia?" The room buzzed with curiosity, and I could feel Elaine's eyes burning into me. I had no idea how to explain this twist of fate, but one thing was clear: everything was about to change. The moment hung heavy in the air as everyone waited for me to respond. My mind raced, trying to process Mr. Harrington's words. "We did go way back, but not in the way anyone in this room might imagine." "Why, yes," I stammered. "Mr. Harrington knew my parents." Richard's eyes narrowed, clearly suspicious. Elaine, ever the perfectionist host, tried to diffuse the tension with a forced laugh. "Well, what a small world. Please, come in, Mr. Harrington." As dinner progressed, the conversation seemed to center around Mr. Harrington. As everyone fawned over his stories of success, I quietly served dishes, keeping my head down and avoiding his gaze. But every so often, I'd catch him watching me with a curious expression. Finally, as the evening began to wind down, Mr. Harrington asked to speak with me privately. Elaine looked displeased, but she didn't dare argue with someone of his status. We stepped into the hallway, and he turned to me with an incredulous expression. "Mia, is it really you? I can't believe this. How have you been?" Hearing the genuine concern in his voice brought tears to my eyes. "It's been difficult," I admitted. He nodded, his brow furrowing. "After your parents passed, I lost touch with you. I tried to find out where you'd gone, but I ended up in the foster system," I said quietly. His face fell. "I'm so sorry, Mia. Your parents were dear friends of mine. They would be heartbroken to know what you've been through." I didn't know what to say. The flood of memories from my childhood, coupled with the overwhelming kindness in his voice, made me feel a mixture of relief and sorrow. "Mr. Harrington's concern didn't end there. As he prepared to leave, he asked Richard and Elaine if I could see him to his car. They reluctantly agreed, clearly eager to maintain their connection to such an influential figure. As we walked down the driveway, he turned to me and said, "Mia, you don't belong here. They treat you like you're nothing, but I can see that you've grown into a strong, capable woman. Your parents would be proud of you." Tears welled up in my eyes again. No one had spoken to me like this in years. "I don't have anywhere else to go," I said, my voice trembling. He placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "You have me now. I'll help you get back on your feet, I promise." Over the next few days, Mr. Harrington's words stayed with me. For the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope. I began to imagine a life beyond the walls of Thomas's family home, a life where I could reclaim my sense of self-worth. But breaking free wasn't going to be easy. I knew that Elaine and Richard would never let me go without a fight. They saw me as nothing more than a convenient housekeeper, someone who could be easily controlled. That's when Mr. Harrington reached out to me with a plan. One afternoon, while Elaine and Richard were out, I received a call from Mr. Harrington. He told me about a job opening at his company, one that he believed I'd be perfect for. "I know it's a lot to process," he said, "but I want you to think about it. This could be your chance to start fresh." I hesitated. The idea of working for someone as accomplished as Mr. Harrington was both exciting and intimidating, but more than that, I feared how Thomas and his family would react if they found out. "You deserve this, Mia," he added. "Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." That evening, as I tried to muster the courage to tell Thomas about the opportunity, a confrontation erupted. Elaine stormed into the kitchen, furious that I had forgotten to polish the silverware for an upcoming party. "You can't even do the simplest tasks right," she snapped. Before I could respond, Thomas chimed in, "Mom's right, Mia, you've been slipping up a lot lately." His words felt like a slap in the face. After everything I had endured, this was how they saw me? Something inside me snapped. I thought of Mr. Harrington's offer, of his belief in me, and of the life I could have if I was brave enough to take a step forward. I looked Thomas in the eye and said, "I'm done." His brow furrowed. "What are you talking about?" "I'm done being treated like a servant. I'm done living in a house where I'm not respected. I'm leaving." The room fell silent. Elaine and Richard stared at me in shock, and for once, Thomas had no words. That night, I packed my things and left. As I walked out the door, I felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing: I wasn't going to let anyone hold me back anymore. I stood on the sidewalk outside Thomas's family home, clutching my small bag of belongings. The house loomed behind me, cold and unwelcoming, but as I took my first steps away, I felt the weight begin to lift from my shoulders. That night, I stayed at a small motel, using the little savings I had managed to squirrel away. I replayed the events of the day in my mind, wondering if I had made the right decision. Doubts crept in, but then I thought of Mr. Harrington's words. "You don't belong there, Mia, you're capable of so much more." I resolved to believe in him and in myself. The next morning, I called Mr. Harrington to let him know I had left. He was relieved and immediately arranged for me to meet him at his office downtown. Walking into his sleek corporate building, I felt out of place. Everyone was dressed sharply, moving with purpose, and I couldn't help but feel self-conscious in my worn-out clothes. But when Mr. Harrington greeted me with a warm smile, some of my nervousness melted away. "I'm so glad you came," he said, ushering me into his office. "I've been thinking about how we can get you started on the right foot." He explained the job he had in mind for me, an entry-level administrative role. It wasn't glamorous, but it was an opportunity to learn, grow, and, most importantly, to earn my independence. "You've got potential, Mia," he said. "I see it. This is just the beginning." Starting at the company was daunting. I had little experience, and the learning curve was steep. There were moments when I doubted myself, times when I felt overwhelmed by the demands of the job, but every time I wanted to give up, I thought of where I had come from and where I wanted to go. Mr. Harrington became a mentor to me, offering guidance and encouragement whenever I needed it. Slowly but surely, I began to find my footing. I made friends among my colleagues, who were supportive and kind. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged. As I settled into my new life, I began to confront the pain of my past. Losing my parents had left a hole in my heart, and the years of mistreatment had made me doubt my worth. But through therapy and self-reflection, I started to heal. One evening, I found myself sorting through a box of my parents' old belongings that Mr. Harrington had kept for me. Among the photos and keepsakes was a letter my mother had written to me years ago. It read, "Mia, life will have its challenges, but never forget how strong and capable you are. You have a kind heart, and that will take you far. Always believe in yourself, even when it feels impossible." Reading her words brought tears to my eyes. I realized that, despite everything, I was living the life my parents would have wanted for me, a life of dignity, hope, and possibility. Several months later, I ran into Thomas at a coffee shop. He looked surprised to see me, and, to my astonishment, a little ashamed. "Mia," he said awkwardly, "I've been meaning to reach out." I crossed my arms, unsure of what to say. "Listen, he sighed, running a hand through his hair, "I didn't treat you right. None of us did. I'm sorry." His apology was unexpected, and while part of me wanted to lash out, I chose a different path. "Thank you," I said simply. "I hope you've learned from it." Walking away from him, I felt a sense of closure. I no longer needed validation from Thomas or his family. I had found my own strength. 1 year after leaving Thomas's family, I had built a life I was proud of. I had been promoted at work, moved into a cozy apartment, and even started taking classes to further my education. Mr. Harrington remained a guiding presence in my life, and I was grateful for his kindness. But more than that, I was proud of myself, for taking the leap, for persevering, and for rediscovering my worth. As I sat on my balcony one evening, watching the sunset, I thought about my journey. Life hadn't been easy, but it had taught me resilience. I whispered into the fading light, "Thank you, Mom and Dad. I'm finally living the life you always wanted for me." And for the first time in years, I felt truly at peace.